It's been a long time coming, but we actually have some nerfs to Doran's shield and second wind on the way. Starting items are being adjusted as well, along with 13 champions receiving changes, so we'll have the complete rundown of everything in today's video and an update to the solo queue tier list for every single role. But first, some hard truths. YouTube is built for the algorithm, not your LP. That means clickbait titles, junk food topics, and stretching simple tips for watch time. We're part of the system too, just like every guide and YouTube channel. And because every video is randomly surfaced to you as a singular guide and topic, advice often contradicts what you just watched. No context, no plan, more confusion. On our website at SkillCapped, however, we're free from all that, allowing us to focus on what actually matters. We teach in the most efficient way to really rank you up fast, with the same premium editing and challenger level coaches you see here, just without the algorithm's hoops. Start with our essentials courses for every role, updated for season 15. These are meticulously planned step-by-step guides that build your fundamentals in the right order. Once you've finished essentials, move into the advanced courses. Deep dive wave control, advanced mechanics, the proven bronze to diamond climb paths, and literal world record jungle clears for each jungler, all structured so lessons stack instead of contradict. While you follow these learning paths, we also release our popular challenger walkthroughs, new sessions every week showing how to abuse the best meta champs for your elo, supported with an AMA section below each video, which we always respond to. We back it with a climb 5 divisions improvement guarantee while you're actively using SkillCapped, plus a 30-day refund change of mind policy on top of that, so there's literally no risk. Stop trying to mix and match random guides and start following a structured path far away from all the noise. Click the limited time discount link below to join SkillCapped today. So if we start off the video by looking at all the item changes, Doran's blade is going to have its lifesteal removed and instead will now heal you for 2.5% of the damage you deal. So what this means is that you will now be able to heal from abilities dealing damage, which will benefit certain champs more than others. Take Aatrox for example. His trading pattern doesn't involve weaving in a bunch of auto attacks early on in lane, as he's playing around his Q and never really wants to sit there and just auto trade with his opponent. So with Doran's blade now healing off abilities, Aatrox will come out of a trade ever so slightly healthier in 25.21. We compared the healing from 25.20 to 25.21, and this is what we found. With Aatrox, we just used a standard combo where we W into all 3 Qs and then auto attack. We made sure to start the combo at the exact same health, which was 750, so that once the combo was over, we could see the healing difference. So in 25.20, after using the combo, we came out of it with 880 health. In 25.21, after using the combo, we end up with 885 health. So it's only a 5 health difference here, which honestly isn't all that significant. We'll have to wait for the changes to hit live servers to get the full picture, but from what we can tell from testing, it looks like the change will be quite power neutral. Doran's ring is next in line for a few changes, with its mana regen per second going from 1.25 to 1. The mana regen will be increased from 1 to 2 for 5 seconds after damaging an enemy champion. So champions who have the ability to trade more aggressively early on in lane will be liking this the most. We have a flat out nerf to Doran's shield for this patch, with the heal going down from 45 to 40 for melee champs. For ranged, it's going to stay the same though. On top of this Doran's nerf, second wind is having its healing reduced, as the base value of 3 healing that you would get is being removed. So champs who like to run the combo of Doran's shield and second wind will be hurting the most in 25.21. Cassante, Shen, Mundo, Tahm Kench, Yone, Nasus, Akali, and Ornn are likely to be affected most significantly. And then we've got one more item change, as Catalyst will have its health lowered from 350 to 300. So Rod of Ages users will be hurting from this one, as Ryze, Anivia, Cassiopeia, Twisted Fate, Cassidy, Gragas, and Veigar will lose a bit of strength for 25.21. So with second wind and Doran's shield getting nerfed, Riot has to be careful about ranged top lane champs being too dominant, so they are getting ahead of things and nerfing Quinn. Quinn's Q bonus AD ratio is going down from 120 to 100% at max rank. Our damage is being changed from a 70% total AD ratio to now having a flat value and a 35% bonus AD ratio. We went out to PBE and did a few comparison tests to see how the damage differs, and this is what we found. At level 6, your R damage will be the exact same from 25.20 to 25.21. Once you have one item completed and are level 8, the damage will be 25 lower in 25.21. What about on 2 items, and if you were level 11? Damage will be 15 lower in 25.21. And then lastly, how about for 3 items, and if you were level 14? Damage will be 51 lower in 25.21. So basically, damage is just lower once you get to 1 item and beyond. Pre-6 Quinn doesn't get affected at all though by these nerfs, and since second wind and Doran's shield are becoming weaker early on, Quinn's bully potential in lane does get better for 25.21 despite the direct nerfs. So because these are scaling nerfs to Quinn, we don't see her losing all that much power, at least relative to all other top lane champs, as we will be dropping her out of the OP tier but only moving her into S. Riot's going to be shifting some numbers around in Mundo's kit for this patch, as he'll be getting a bit tankier but losing some damage. Armor growth is being increased from 3.7 to 4.5, so you'll now have an extra 14 armor at level 18. E damage is being reduced though, with the active bonus health ratio dropping from 7 to 5%. So we can probably expect for these adjustments to land power neutral, and because of that, we won't won't be moving Mundo anywhere on the tier list as he'll remain placed in A. Gwen has been down in the dumps as of late, hovering below a 47% win rate, so Riot's going to be doing something I don't think we've ever seen them do before. Riot will be completely reverting Gwen back to her 25.5 version, which is kind of crazy considering she's been changed in 5 different patches since then. So Riot's just wiping out 5 patches worth of changes and putting Gwen back to where she was earlier in the season, which should land her in a much better spot. Looking back at our 25.5 tier list, we had Gwen rated in the top lane A tier, so at the very least, we can expect Gwen to be in a better spot for this next patch than she's been as of recent. For now, we're going to bump Gwen up into the A tier, but we may have to circle back for mid-patch depending on how everything plays out when the changes hit live servers. So for the top lane tier list in 25.21, we're going to be moving Cassio back up into the OP tier. Cass top has already been overperforming in recent patches, and with Doran's shield and second wind being nerfed, it's just going to make her bully power in lane that much better. The majority of top lane champs that will be laning into Cass are going to take Doran's shield, so the nerf is great for her. The fact Doran's ring now gives more mana back when dealing damage is also really nice for Cass, as you'll have more mana regen when fighting, which in certain cases could end up with you being able to throw in an extra E before going out of mana. Ranged top lane champs in general are going to be ones to keep a close eye on for this patch, as Teemo, Kennen, Vayne, Varus, Vlad, Jace, and Gnar should all see an uptick in power. How much power exactly is hard to say though. And then, as we mentioned when covering the item changes, K'Sante, Shen, Mundo, Tahm Kench, Yone, Nasus, Akali, and Ornn are going to be losing some power due to those Doran's shield and second wind nerfs. Will the nerfs be enough to actually move the needle in regards to their tier list placements? They definitely could, but for now, we're not going to jump the gun and move any of them down the tier list, as we'll have to see the exact severity of the nerfs when they go live. The most OP jungler from the past patch is being nerfed in 25.21, as Diana will have her passive monster damage lowered from 300 to 280%. So when Diana was originally buffed back in 25.19, passive monster damage went from 260 to 300%. So with it going down to 280%, they are reverting half of that buff. Since the original buff saw Diana's win rate increased by 1%, we can expect for this nerf to lead to around a 0.5% drop in win rate, which would still leave Diana in a great spot. So we'll only be moving Diana down 1 tier for this patch, as she's going from OP into S. Graves will be receiving an interesting adjustment for this patch, with his base magic resist going down from 32 scaling to 67 to 30 scaling to 52. However, E will now provide 2 scaling to 8 magic resist per stack. So Riot's really looking to push Graves away from lethality and onto Bruiser with the changes they've issued in the last 2 patches. Last patch, Riot nerfed the bonus AD ratio but buffed the base damage of Graves' Q, and then with you now being able to stack magic resist from E, it really incentivizes building him like a Bruiser. Our challenger jungler Skillshot is a big Graves player, and he's actually already been testing a Sundered Sky Rush on Graves, and he's got a new full game commentary where he showcases the build that is up on our website. So definitely looking to Sundered Sky with Black Cleaver as a potential 2-item core for Graves moving forward. The fact that you gain magic resist for stacking E means that you need to be in the fight for a more extended duration to really get the most out of it, which favors Bruiser builds over lethality. No movement in regards to Graves' tier list placement for now, as we'll be keeping him in A. So we've got a couple of changes to the jungle tier list for this patch, as Volibear and Jax will be slotting into the OP tier with Diana dropping out. Volibear has been completely unfazed by his recent nerfs because there's a new build popping up where he rushes Trinity Force instead of Cosmic Drive, so the fact Riot has nerfed his AP ratios literally doesn't matter at all if you're going Trinity. We'll have to see if the build catches on more for this patch to get a more clear picture as to whether Trinity is just flat out better than Cosmic Drive, but in over 12,000 games throughout 25.20, Trinity did have a higher win rate than Cosmic Drive as a rush. So it's Trinity Force into Flicker Blades, and then situationally tanky as the build you want to try on Volibear for 25.21. So Riot's decided to toss in a Yone buff for this patch because they feel like with the Doran's shield and second wind nerfs coming through that Yone will be negatively impacted the most. Base AD will be increased from 60 to 62, and in terms of an analytical standpoint, this buff should be more than enough to outweigh the Doran's shield and second wind nerfs. So we won't be moving Yone anywhere on the tier list for the time being, as he'll remain in the B tier. Morgana is going to be nerfed for this patch, but not in the way we were expecting, as her base armor is going down from 5 to 4.2. We kind of thought that if Riot were to nerf Morg, they would nerf her ability to one-shot the ranged minions at level 5 with a single W usage, but they're taking a different approach. It is a 14 armor loss at level 18, so it's definitely not insignificant. We do have to keep in mind that it's only 14 if you actually reach level 18 though, which you won't in the majority of games, so you'll more so be looking at a max loss of 10 or 12 armor for most games. So the severity of this nerf is going to depend a lot on who you're playing against. Just use your ban on Zed, who's the most played AD mid laner, and then it's much less likely you'll even be going up against a physical damage champion, as there isn't any being played in meta at nearly the same rate as Zed. We definitely think there's a chance Morgana loses enough power to push her out of OP, but it's definitely not super clear, so we'll be leaving her in OP for now. Qiyana is being tagged with 2 nerfs, as her Q bonus AD ratio is being lowered from 90 to 85%, so not something that really affects her early game at all, but 3 items onwards, you will be losing a bit of damage there. Health growth is going down as well from 124 to 121. So definitely nothing over the top with these nerfs, and we won't be dropping Qiyana further down the tier list. So for mid lane in 25.21, here's what we're working with. We will continue to have Morgana, Diana, and LeBlanc in the OP tier, and LeBlanc should in theory get even better for this patch. More mana back out of Doran's ring when trading is really nice for LeBlanc, as she wants to be aggressive in lane, and then less sustain out of Doran's shield and second wind will result in her poke being more meaningful. Artillery mages should get a bit better for this patch too, because their poke damage won't be healed up as quickly as before, leading to more kill opportunities in lane. Kassadin and Akali are two mid laners who may see a bit of a drop off for this patch, because they do like to run Doran's shield and second wind in harder matchups. With Catalyst nerfed as well, Kassadin may actually be the biggest loser of the patch, as he's being indirectly nerfed in 3 different ways, so we're going to drop him into the A tier. For ADC this patch, we have a few struggling champs receiving buffs, as Ezreal will have his AD growth increased from 2.75 to 3.25. When Ashe got this buff a few patches ago, it led to her win rate increasing by a bit over 1%, so Ezreal should see something similar. Even then, we don't think that will be enough to move Ezreal up into a good spot, because he's been down around a 47% win rate in recent patches, so we'll be leaving him in the B tier. Kalista is the second ADC who will receive an AD growth buff, as it's going from 4.25 to 4.75. It's pretty much the exact same outlook as we had for Ezreal, with Kalista being a terrible pick in recent patches, so even though this buff likely adds over 1% win rate, it won't be enough to move Kalista into a good spot, so she's going to remain down in C tier. These Yunara changes are pretty confusing to look at, so to make things easier on everyone, let's just compare the damage output from 25.20 to 25.21. So W damage is being changed, and if we have a Doran's Blade and our level 3, the difference in damage from 25.20 to 25.21 is non-existent, as it will be the exact same. What about on one item though with Kraken Slayer completed? Damage will be 11 higher for 25.21. How about on 2 items with Kraken and Hurricane completed? It's actually got a lot lower for this next patch, going from 147 to 128. This does make sense though, because the W ratio is being changed from a total AD ratio to a bonus AD ratio, and when you purchase Hurricane, you get no bonus AD at all. What about when you get to 3 items then and have Infinity Edge completed, which will provide a ton of bonus AD? Damage now goes back up from 232 last patch to 254 in 25.21. So this is a pretty weird change, where you will have more damage early game and on your 1 item spike, but in the mid game while you're sitting on Hurricane, the damage is going to dip until you can start building towards Infinity Edge. RW damage is being changed in a similar fashion, with the total AD ratio being swapped for a bonus AD ratio, so let's see if this is a buff or a nerf. If you are level 6 and are sitting on a Hearthbound axe, the damage from last patch is at 174, and this next patch will be at 176, so a very slight increase. If you have your Kraken Slayer completed, the damage in 25.20 was coming in at 200, while the damage in 25.21 will be lower at 191. With Hurricane completed, damage in 25.20 is at 283, while in 25.21 it's at 280, so a very small drop off. And then if you have your 3 item core finished, the damage in 25.20 sits at 344, while in 25.21 it's lower at 323. So it's looking like prior to your 1 item spike is where this adjustment is a buff, but after 1 item it turns into a nerf. All in all though, the RW damage drop off is pretty small, and with W damage going up for the majority of the game, these adjustments to W likely land as net positive, but they don't seem overly impactful. E is going to be changed so that the cooldown is going from 7.5 to 9 seconds. However, E movement speed will no longer decay. And then there's a bug fix to E so that it now properly loses its enhanced movement speed when turning away from enemies. So overall, Riot has these changes under the buff category, but we really don't see them increasing Yunara's power by much at all. E cooldown is nerfed and W damage isn't going up by a crazy amount, so we could be wrong here, but Yunara likely remains one of the weaker ADCs, so we won't be moving her out of the C tier. Kog'Maw is the only ADC who will be flat out nerfed for this patch, as his Q passive attack speed is going down by 5% at all ranks. Nothing major here by any means, and we'll be keeping Kog'Maw in the ADC S tier. So despite ADC receiving a bunch of changes, we don't see the meta actually changing at all. Jinx and Ashe have been the 2 best ADCs over the past few patches, and because they won't be nerfed, there's no reason to stop prioritizing them the most. We'll have to see how the Doran's Blade changes influence the role, but initial expectations are that the changes won't matter enough to sway the power level of any champion significantly. Since you can heal off abilities now, some ADCs will benefit from that more than others, as Jhin, for instance, will be able to heal from using his Q. For any bot lane Yasuo players out there, he will become a bit weaker for this patch, because taking second wind is pretty vital when playing him down bot. Doran's Blade already does have a better win rate and play rate than Doran's Shield on bot lane Yasuo though, so he really shouldn't be affected by the shield nerf. So since it's only the second wind nerf that will hurt him, we're inclined to think his power won't drop off that much, and we'll be keeping him in the ADC S tier. Riot's looking to give Bard players more of a reason to build AP on him for this patch, as his W heal AP ratio is going up by 10% at all ranks, and W movement speed to AP ratio is up from 5 to 6%. So all this does for solo queue Bard is solidify Liandry's as his best second purchase. There may be a world where rushing Echoes of Helia becomes good now, but the fact it's just a 10% heal buff has us thinking thinking Deadman's will just remain as the best rush item for Bard. So we really don't expect for Bard to actually gain much win rate at all from these buffs, because if he continues to rush Deadman's, then you don't even feel the changes until much later in the game. As a result, Bard will remain placed in the support A tier. So it's just Bard and Morgana as the support champions change for this patch, which means another pretty uneventful patch for the role and no big meta shifts will be occurring. The Morgana nerf doesn't impact her nearly as much for support as it will for mid lane, because you don't get access to as much experience when playing support, and therefore scaling changes are never as significant. So for now, we will be leaving Morgana in the support S tier. We were really hoping that Riot would do something to shake up the upper echelon of the support role, but it's just going to be another patch of Melio and Nami in the OP tier. Surely, Riot makes some sort of change soon, because it has been quite some time that both picks have had super high play rates and win rates. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's going to wrap everything up for our 25.21 tier list. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.